Here is Curt Schilling last hour when I asked him when did he decide to return fire on those on Twitter.
Well, I think you know me, so probably 1 to 2 milliseconds after I read the first tweet. The post, the blog that I did was probably edit number 5,600 because my first blog was, I'm getting in my car and driving to here and I'm going to kill this guy. And I realized that probably wouldn't do much and wouldn't be received well. So I sat back and listened and watched. And, I've been using the computer for, 30-some years. And it doesn't take a lot of work. It doesn't take a lot of IQ to find people. Anonymity is, for the most part, is a myth.
I want to separate Schilling being a celebrity with just cyberbullying, because that's really a bigger picture here. Yes, Schilling does have the means to be able to track somebody down. People have criticized him that he's going to ruin these kids' lives. Yeah, I don't have any sympathy for you. I'm sorry. And you don't have to have a daughter to understand. If somebody writes this about you, okay, I'm a big boy. If you say something about my daughter, it's different. He tracked him down. But this is not just about Curt Schilling. It's a bigger picture and a bigger problem that we have. Somebody sends something out, somebody sends something, they follow up, retweet, then all of a sudden game on. And then I was reading Deadspin, and Drew Magary had, kind of trying to capsulize this of what was going on with Curt Schilling. And he also talked about why athletes should not tweet. And Drew, kind enough to join us, a columnist for Deadspin and also GQ. Drew, if you were an athlete on Twitter, how would you respond to criticism?
I think the obvious thing is to first not be on Twitter, because it doesn't like Tom Brady isn't on Twitter, and it doesn't seem to his life doesn't seem to be poor for it. You know what I mean?
But why do they do it then?
I think one of the reasons they do it is they might have a team of people, agents, managers, who say, hey, you have to get on Twitter and you have to have a brand personality. And so they go on Twitter and they say, hey, drink more Gatorade or something like that. And then also, I think it's just fun for a lot of people. I mean, why does anyone go on Twitter? I think people tend to be sort of knowing, I'm on Twitter and I do it because, I want to tweet something funny and then have, 5 people say, hey, that was funny, Drew. And then I'm like, I'm funny. And then I feel all validated and warm and wonderful. But these are athletes. So in theory, they already get enough of that ass kissing in person. They shouldn't need it online.
Why do they engage as far as battling with fans?
Well, first of all, like you said, it's the nature of being competitive. They want to win. That always happens with Twitter beefs. Guys want to win the argument. And there's never any resolution. Nobody ever ends up being the big man on Twitter. Like, no one's ever like, all right, you have a good point. Let's shake hands. Let's go to Temecula and shake hands instead of fighting. And the problem is, I think that anytime you argue with someone online, it always ends up unresolved. And I think if you're a normal human being, having an unresolved conflict in your life can be really unsettling. Like, it gnaws at you. It really gets in your head and bothers you. And it's a waste of time. It's not particularly productive, and you shouldn't have really gotten into it in the first place. It's different with Schilling because those are legitimate threats, and I understand why he did that. But, if you're just talking about straight-up beefing like the way Kaepernick and Griffin have done with people, even if you win, you don't really win by engaging.
When did Twitter turn ugly?
Oh, I think it's just a reflection of the internet. I think message boards have had ugly elements. I think Twitter has had ugly elements. You go on Facebook, every Facebook comment's terrible. Like, your uncle's the worst human being on Facebook. So, I think that's always been there. And I think it's hard for people who are particularly public, anyone who has like 1 million followers or something crazy like that, women, anyone who's perceived as vulnerable. I think that they will get targeted more often than just random schlubs. And, I think it's just a way for people to say, okay, well, if I say something ugly enough, he'll respond, and then I'll have a bit of notoriety because someone responded.
Does the Schilling situation change anything?
Well, I think it's a reflection of, there have been a lot of pieces about women getting harassed, particularly in like Gamergate. People are getting sort of harassed and real rape threats. When a lot of women get threatened online, they go to the cops. The cops say, we can't really do anything about it. But it shouldn't be that way. There needs to be some way to protect people from real credible threats of being raped, killed, tortured, mutilated online. Because there's a difference between free speech and outright threatening people that I think is a pretty clear line to a lot of people.
Who's the best athlete on Twitter?
Probably Brandon McCarthy. He still plays, right? Like Clouie doesn't play anymore, so I can't. I'm not saying that as a diss on Brandon McCarthy. I just don't follow baseball that much. But he's good. Like anyone who's just sort of funny and lively and doesn't. There are guys who I think are smart enough to just tell a few jokes, and if someone gets at them, then they ignore it, they mute them, and they just go on with their lives.
What did you think of the mothership suspending Keith Olbermann?
Well, I think I sort of get why they did it, because it was weird, because Olbermann didn't really bring up, he just said that the students were pitiful. And he didn't go and explain, like, okay, well, the school is still sort of in denial about what happened with Sandusky and Paterno, et cetera, et cetera. He was just calling the kids pitiful and just straight up trolling them. And I'm sure ESPN was like, what are you doing? Like, you're Keith Olbermann. Why are you in your apartment at like 10 o'clock at night beefing with like Bob, who's 17 years old and has a Twitter egg for an avatar? Like, what are you doing? You need to focus a bit more.
And plus, even the suspensions at the mothership, if you're going to sit somebody down and you've had a variety of people who have been suspended there, we're not sure how to police or punish. Are we at the workplace?
No, I don't think so. I think that they're still figuring it out. I think that basically all the companies are doing is ensuring that their employees don't make them look bad. That's all they want. They want to put them in a position where they think twice before making their company look bad. That's all it really is. That's what these suspensions are about. And they have a right to do it. I don't think it's going to accomplish anything. I think Keith is still going to be Keith. And I'm sure he's like, he said on a show last night, like, well, I'm done beefing with people. And it's like, well, you're Keith Olbermann. If you can't beef, you're not really Keith Olbermann anymore.
Did Deadspin get pitched to buy the video with Des Bryant?
Well, we got a lot of solicitations, but none of them were real. So we are still, I think, very dubious of the idea that it even exists. Because if it existed, where is it?
Yeah, it's too big with too much money and clicks and whatever else is going to go with that to stay on the sideline this long.
Yeah, and why wouldn't the NFL buy it and release it themselves and have the suspension ready with it? Like, here's your package deal. We found the tape this time. And the suspension works. Like, look, he punches the baby 8 times. So we gave him 8 games. It all works mathematically.
Yeah, so they would have learned from Ray Rice that they just pack it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't buy the tape and burn it. Like, they would buy the tape this time and be like, we have the tape. We've seen it. We know what's on it. You can't get us for that.
Thank you, Drew. Good to hear from you.
For the record, it only took one producer to put this segment together, so Cowherd can stuff it, all right?
Thank you, Drew.
You're welcome.
Actually, I think it took 2. It took Paulie and Fritzy. Although Fritzy not exactly a producer, so 1.5 producers.
Wow.
Drew Magary from Deadspin, also a GQ correspondent there.